some questions. Okay, so let's just go see, again, let's keep it very informal. So I'm going to talk really about three things here. One, something about me. I want you to learn about me. And then about TI. I know Brittany already talked about the calculators, but I want to let you know that calculators are not a big chunk of our revenue. 2 or 3%, but that's all you know about TI, where TI's got, you know, anyway, we'll go into that. And then really the meat of the talk is going to be how, who, why. Okay, so something about me is I'm the manager of technology development, work for DLP Products. You may have not heard of DLP Products, but I guarantee you've seen it. I've been at TI 30 years. I can tell you that Florida to Texas and Dallas was not on my roadmap. I have 12 patents. I helped develop the technology. So I've been, anyway, I love the job. I love the technology. I'll explain it to you later on. My history in Florida is that I got my BS from chemistry from UF in 1981. I worked for a research company in Birmingham for 3 or 4 years, working on the, our company built equipment to detect the destruction of chemical warfare agents. So basically, when the government was destroying all World War I, we made sure the rest of the community wasn't going to be harmed by that.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're going in and out a little bit. You might have to take off of speakerphone.
Okay. So is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, and then let me know if I'm cutting out, because maybe I'm talking so fast the sound just can't keep up. After working for this company, I realized I wasn't going to make much money as a BS chemist. Went back to Florida to get my PhD in analytical chemistry. Graduated in 1989, and I hired into TI. I had many jobs. Fortunately, back in '89, I could have worked for Eli Lilly, a lot of pharmaceutical companies. I wanted to go a non-traditional chemical route. Also, I was a lead actor in Gator Growl, and I assume you guys still have Gator Growl.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. So that was maybe my 15 minutes of fame, was being an actor in Gator Growl. I grew up, so successful Plan B career. Just to let you guys know that, you know, I was a pre-med guy, and I thought I was going to go into medicine, and I didn't get in med school, right? So I had to go figure out what's my Plan B. My Plan B was to do something that came natural to me, and that was chemistry. And I think I've had a very successful career doing my Plan B approach. So I guess my advice to you guys is that I'm assuming everyone has a Plan A. You know, think about your Plan B as well. And Brittany, am I cutting out still, or am I okay?
You're doing okay. You're good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Florida, I grew up in Winter Park, Florida, outside Orlando. Went to New Smyrna Beach a ton, grew up around lakes, grew up water skiing, you know, playing all the sports, whatever. I'm married, have 2 children. My son went to OU, and then he's now in law school at SMU, Southern Methodist University. My daughter graduated from University of Texas in nursing, and now she's working at Baylor University in Dallas. I've run Boston twice, and my family goals, we have to see the mountains and the beach once a year. So the pictures on the left are us, the family, skiing in Whistler, and then the picture above that is my wife and I doing a rim-to-rim hike in the Grand Canyon. Real quick, this is how Texas views the rest of the country. And if you look at, you know, my path along the country was I was born in New York and moved to Winter Park in the mid-60s, then went to Gainesville, and then from Gainesville with a BS degree in chemistry, I moved further south to Birmingham, moved further culturally south, if you will. But Alabama was an interesting place to live. Actually, I loved it. Back to Gainesville, get my PhD, and again, Dallas was not on my roadmap. Texas was not on my roadmap, but I've been here for actually, 30 plus years now. So with that, let me stop and see if there's any questions about just me in general. Do you guys, anything that you guys want to ask me or chat about regarding my path or my my job at TI right now, which I'll get into in a second. Okay, so again, don't be shy in jumping in or writing a chat message or something. Okay, TI. So again, calculators is about 2 to 3% of the company, and we're a $15 billion company. We make 80,000 products. We have 100,000 customers. We go into industrial, automotive, personal electronics, cell phones, TVs, what have you. We have our national headquarters is in Dallas. We have 15,000 employees here in Dallas and another 15,000 throughout the world. We have 14 manufacturing sites, and we produce tens of billions of chips a year. So we're really big in the semiconductor, obviously. We started in oil in 1930s. Then we went into defense systems. In the 50s, Jack Kilby invented the integrated circuit, and he won a Nobel Prize for that in the 90s. Then in the 70s, we started producing microprocessors, and there was a game out there called Speak and Spell, which I guess is like maybe the pre-Alexa kind of thing, where if you typed in a name or typed in like the word shell, it would say the word shell. So it was pretty advanced for the 70s, right? This is way before computers. Digital signal processing and DLP technology was born in the 80s or late 80s, and then you can see the map goes on. Basically, how many people? I guess has anybody on the call heard of DLP technology? You can audio or just chat it. So the answer is no. Okay, so how many people have been to the movies? And a lot of people have been to the movies, and I'll say that 90% of the technology of putting the image on the screen is our technology, okay? Half the conference rooms, classrooms, are our technology. So I'll go into our technology. So we build a chip that contains micro mirrors, and these mirrors tilt back and forth. The animation is not working right now, but these mirrors are anywhere from 5 microns up to 13 microns square. So to give you a perspective of how big a micron is, the width of your hair is 100 microns, right? So we make these mirrors that steer light through an optical system and then onto the screen that are either 1/20th or like 1/10th the width of your hair, okay? Dr. Larry Hornbeck, who's the inventor of the technology, I worked with him for 20 plus years. He received an Academy Award. So they have Academy Awards for the technologists, so we don't get the chance to walk on the red carpet with all the movie stars, but they have a technical Academy Award for technology. And so we won an Emmy and an Academy Award. And then, like I mentioned before, 90% of movie theaters have our technology. So next time you're allowed in a movie theater, and the movie's over, walk up to the screen and you can see the individual mirrors on the screen. The mirrors will be about 1 inch square. Don't touch the screen because you get in trouble, but at least look and you can see the mirrors being on the screen. We build technology that there's these fingers here, someone's holding a small chip. We have chips that go into augmented reality, virtual reality glasses. We build projectors that can fit into your backpack or hold in your hand. So you can bring, let's say, you're a big video gamer, but you don't, you want to sit in your room and play the video game on your ceiling. You use our technology for that. We build laser TVs, ultra short throw laser TVs. Again, our technology goes in the conference rooms. And then like the Beijing Olympics or really big outdoor events is our projector technology out there putting an image on some screen. And then of course, we put it onto large theater screens. And then we also use our technology for 3D scanning. So we can actually take let's say an assembly line. We can use our technology to image or to measure XYZ of a component to make sure it fits certain specifications. We can use it for lithography on printed circuit boards, 3D printing, and then of course spectroscopy. And some new areas we're getting into is for automotive display. So we're putting a head-up display in a windshield. And so this display allows your eyes to stay focused on the road. And then we'll put content on your windshield to make it look like the content is far on the road. So let's say you're using your GPS and you need to turn right. they'll project an arrow on the road that says, hey, turn right here, turn left there. It'll put up your speed and other content so you keep your eyes on the road. We're also looking at smart headlights, so you can keep your high beams on, but when an oncoming driver comes towards you, the headlights are smart enough to blank out the area so you don't blind the oncoming driver, but then the high beams stay on. And then we're doing stuff in cars where we're putting like side window displays. So let's say you order an Uber, and the Uber comes up to me and says, hey, Mike, I'm your Uber driver, come on in, right? So you know exactly that this is a car you need to get into and not some other car. And then there's dynamic ground projection where people are putting displays in car doors, and then on the side view mirrors. So that, you know, Audi may want to put their logo, or BMW. And then someone wrote, I think Annette wrote that her car does that now with high beams. And yes, that's like those are matrix LEDs that do that for headlights. But think about using our technology. We can create crosswalks on the road so a pedestrian can walk across the road. So we can do vehicle-to-vehicle transmission or vehicle-to-human transmission. There's a lot more we can do with our technology because we have higher resolution. So from a TI DLP standpoint, a Toyota Corolla does that? Oh my gosh, I can't believe a Toyota Corolla does that. And yeah, they said the new Mustangs project logos on the ground. Cars are going to come with all kinds of lighting, so it's just super cool technology. Okay, so for me personally, working at TI, I get excited to get out of bed every single day because I think the technology I'm working on is like super cool, and it's been cool for 30 years, and I still get excited about it. I don't want to work in any other business than TI. So with that, any questions about me or TI or DLP technology before I move into the influencing part of the talk?
Mike, I'm just curious, when it comes to those little mirrors, how do you make those? That's probably a silly question, but.
No, it's not a silly question. So in semiconductor processing, when you make your components, all like if you took apart your cell phone or took apart your remote control for your TV, you see all these kind of electronic circuits on printed circuit boards. And those are made with semiconductor processing. And so there are circuits that have, you know, metal line widths that are you know, microns wide or microns thick. Actually, micron thick is pretty thick. So basically, you use anyway, we have to go into a whole presentation as far as how semiconductor processing works, but it's using very high-end optical equipment that will pattern an image onto a structure, expose that image, and then use chemicals to remove materials underneath that image. So it's like building it's like making a lasagna. You just stack these things up, and then you expose it with light, and then you remove components to make these little line traces in the semiconductor processing. So for me as a chemist, there's a lot of chemistry involved in this processing. There's a lot of metal deposition, a lot of oxide deposition, there's a lot of dry chemical etching, a lot of wet chemical etching. So it fit very nicely with my degree.
That's very cool.
So, yeah. Anything from the students? You guys are awfully quiet out there, other than the Mustang folks and the Toyota Corolla folks. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move into the who, why, and how to influence. And I'm going to really give you my take and my experience, and we're doing fine on time. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about who you can influence, why, how, and then some success secrets, like little tidbits of information, some helpful hints, if you will, as you go through life, or go through school, or go through your next job, or whatever it is. First of all, on the who you can influence, I think anybody you interact with, you can influence, whether it's a superior, it could be a manager, it could be a teacher, it could be your parents. Peers could be your colleagues in school, it could be your friends, your subordinates could be, if you're a manager, people that work for you, or if you're an older brother or sister, your younger siblings. You have an opportunity to influence everybody, right? Just because there's a hierarchy here, it doesn't mean that it only goes one way and that's down. I'm trying to stress that when I mentor students or mentor new employees, I like to use the term managing up, and that's influencing your boss. So I think it's wide open as far as who you can influence. So the why is it important to influence? Well, the most important thing is that you get what you want, right? And that I think that's super important. Uh, and the more you get what you want, the more you can influence others, the more of a reputation you get as a leader. And people say, hey, Mike was able to work with these 20 people to get to and solve this problem or to lead them down the path to go do X, Y, and Z. What's in it for the people that you're influencing? Well, typically, you want a solution that is a win-win for everybody. And so usually it's a much more positive outcome if the whole team agrees to go do X, Y, and Z, and you're influencing them to go do X, Y, and Z to go achieve some positive outcome. And the other thing is that you really accelerate results. I mean, we talk about analysis paralysis in the work industry, where sometimes people will spend days and years, and well, not years, but a long time trying to figure out what's the best solution. And I hate analysis paralysis because sometimes you just never get to an answer. And usually I like to start meeting with people and start influencing them like, hey, this may not be the perfect answer, but it's an answer. Let's go forward on it. So to me, it's a way to accelerate the results. Okay, how to influence. And again, folks on the line, don't be shy in throwing questions as you come along. But if you look at the textbooks on Influence 101, if you will, they're certainly logical, emotional, and cooperative, right? Now, logical is like, hey, I have a strong argument. Let me tell you why my argument is the best thing we should do. And this is like, I'm going to influence you because I have a really strong argument. Well, the problem is that the argument may be logical, but humans aren't logical. And you may not win anybody over by having a sound, logical argument. Emotion, yep, emotion certainly works. And emotion may be like, oh, please, you let me do this. I promise I'll do X, Y, and Z. Or if I don't get this grade in this class, I'm going to fail this and this. Yep, emotion can work sometimes, but usually it doesn't. I certainly lost almost every emotional appeal with any kind of professor about changing a grade because I thought I was right and he or she was wrong. On cooperative appeals, we certainly heard in 2019, quid pro quo, right? Hey, if you help me here, then I'll help you there. Those things certainly work, and just be careful with them as far as what you're agreeing to help somebody else out. So this is all I'm going to explain. This is all I'm going to talk about regarding textbook kind of influence. What I'm going to talk about today really is something called the meeting before the meeting. Okay, and it sounds it is what it is. It really is having meetings before the meeting to influence a group of people to go do X, Y, and Z. So, I'll show a couple case in points here. One is my family, of my wife, my daughter, my son, and we struggle as a family just making a decision where to eat dinner in a restaurant, right? I mean, we just cannot make a decision. And when we're all four of us in the car and we're hungry and we're grumpy, it's like a disaster trying to make a decision as a foursome. So in this case, my family, I've learned that anytime we get the whole family together, making a decision as a group is painful. And usually I don't get what I want. So family vacation's coming up, and I knew that a foursome I was going to lose on the family vacation route. So I decided, hey, I'm going to meet with each family member individually. I meet with my daughter. What does she want? Dad, I want to go skiing at a different mountain. I'm tired of skiing in Winter Park, Colorado. I want to go someplace else. Okay, got it. My son, Dad, I want to do some international trip. Okay, got it. My wife, she just wants to make traveling as easy as possible, right? So I got a chance to hear all their input, and then I got a chance to formulate a solution and get back to them. So the best solution was to ski in Whistler, Canada, because one, it's a new ski mountain. Two, it's international. Three, there's the direct flight from Dallas to Vancouver. My wife is happy, and when she's happy, we're of course all happy. And so you know, that's a way that those are having 3 separate meetings before the big meeting with the family to say, this is what we're going to go do. In a work example, since I'm the technology manager, so my job is to, I provide technology to the business managers. I provide technical solutions for them with new components. And so there's 3 managers, manager A, B, and C. And manager A, all he cares about is making small projectors, something that you can hold in your hand, something that can go in eyeglasses. Manager B, she'll work on large projectors that are in classrooms or conference rooms or movie theaters. And manager C, he works on technology that is used in the automotive industry. Now, if I get all 3 of them together in a room, everyone's going to be extremely selfish, and all they want is what they want. They don't care. Manager A doesn't care about manager B or C, and B doesn't care about A and C doesn't care about A and B. My job is to try and provide a technology that will make them all happy, if that's possible, right? So I'll meet with each one individually, and I'll hear their needs. And so I'll listen to manager A one-on-one, and manager B one-on-one, and manager C one-on-one. And then I'll get them all 3 together, and I say, okay, guys, here's what I heard, and here's what you told me, and here's what I think is the best solution. You know, there may be a compromise. Maybe manager A doesn't get all that he wants, or manager B doesn't get all that she wants, but they see that I took the effort to meet with all 3 of them, and I came up with a solution that I think is going to make all 3 somewhat happy. Maybe not perfectly happy, but I'd rather make all 3 somewhat happy than make one really happy and make the other 2 not happy, right?
Mike, we had a question for you here.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. She just asked it. So Annette asked about the influence you just spoke of. Do you think it's okay to be upfront, blunt, and to the point instead of softening with emotion or negotiations?
I found that I'm the most blunt, to the point person. I love doing that way because that's the fastest way to get something. But if you try and do that in a larger meeting, it's not going to come across very well. It's going to come across as being confrontational. It's going to come across as not being working with others. It's not going to come across well. You're going to lose your audience. As much as I want to be upfront and blunt, it usually doesn't work. Like if I got all 3 of these managers together in a room and said, okay, you guys need to play nice together, it's not going to happen. But I want it to happen, but it's not going to happen. So as much blunt and upfrontness I'd love to be, because it just gets things done much more quickly, I've got to spend time. And someone said, I have a law enforcement background. I run into this issue a lot. Is the issue meaning that interfacing with multiple people at the same time versus interfacing with one person at a time? Is that kind of what you're saying, Annette? Oh, being blunt and upfront. I mean, are you proposing that you think being blunt and upfront is the best way to handle those kind of situations? Okay. For me in the workplace, it just hasn't worked. I've failed every single time I've tried to be blunt and upfront. Now, if there's a crisis, let's say that the house is on fire, you don't have time to negotiate with people and come up with a better idea. It's like, get the heck out of the house. The house is on fire, get out, right? So if you're in an emergency situation, you've got to be blunt and upfront. I get that. But if you're in a situation that you're trying to make the best decision that's going to meet the business needs, provide the most revenue, or whatever attributes there are, then you've got to take more time and make sure you're addressing some of the emotional needs. Oh, and you're right. So the thing here is that yes, they misinterpret as being confrontational. I get it, because that's how it comes across. Is if you're being blunt, people will interpret that as being confrontational, and that's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to state the facts, and sometimes people misinterpret it incorrectly all the time, especially in larger, more than one group setting. Okay, moving on. Okay, so in the meeting before the meeting, I have 2 slides on this, like what's in it for them. Well, people want to be heard, right? So it's important that you hear them, and in the larger setting, it's hard for them to be heard. Some people are introverts, some people just won't speak up in a meeting, or won't speak up in a group of people that are more than 2 or 3. So you need strong active listening skills. these people that they also want something too, right? So you listening to them and you understanding what their needs are, hopefully you'll be able to address them, or maybe there's a good swap down the road. Again, getting back to that quid pro quo thing. The other thing is that my little, I guess it's called a poop emoji off to the right, is like, I don't like to surprise people in meetings, and I call that putting a turd on the table. And that may be the upfront kind of thing that we were talking about earlier. I don't want to surprise somebody and saying, hey, this is what we're going to go do. This is why I think we should do it. Is that if you catch them off guard, man, people do not like that. They want to be included in the discussion process, which is why the pre-meeting, the meeting before the meeting is so important, because they feel included. Now, the other thing of that meeting before the meeting is I get a chance to voice my input. I get a chance to plant a seed in their head as far as what I want and why I want it. So I listen to them and they listen to me, right? So it's a giving back, or a back and forth situation where we both listen to each other, which is super important. Moving on. The other thing is that what's in it for me is that I get a chance to create a stronger case that supports what I want. In other words, I get a chance to hear everyone's input one-on-one, and then think about what their input was and come up with a better answer or a more influential decision. I don't think well on my feet if I'm in front of an audience. Now, if I was in front of you teaching or lecturing, whatever, I can certainly answer questions. But if it comes to some kind of strategy that I need to spend more time with, I struggle doing that in a large setting, especially when there's emotions involved and somebody's upset over here and like it just becomes chaos. So I get a chance to think about it, which really gets down to the third bullet on this slide, which gives me a chance to pause. And pausing is really effective for me because I really get a chance to like think about my solution process. I get to tailor what I want and include what they want. Again, they heard me, I heard them. I'm going to try and incorporate some of the things that they want into the solution or into the influential message that I'm going to provide. The other thing is, by talking to them, I actually get a chance to build advocates. I mean, after the pre-meeting, I may be talking to the group later on and say, hey, I talked to Joe Blow, and we talked about this. And then Joe Blow may speak up and says, yeah, Mike already talked to me about this, and I'm perfectly on board, and I think we should go do this. And then, of course, you'll identify who are against you. You know, in the one-on-one meeting, someone will say, Mike, I think this is garbage, and what you're saying is not going to work, and blah, blah, blah. At least I know who my advocates are and who my enemies are. And I'm talking a lot of, obviously, business stuff, but trust me, it works in the family environment, too. It's like which family member is going to be more on my side and which will be more against me. Not that my family hates me or anything like that. Just I need to know who's going to be in my camp and who's not going to be in my camp so I can make my argument stronger. A key thing on the pre-meeting is that really you avoid group conflict. One-on-one, I can manage conflict very, very well, or I can, manage any kind of relationship in a one-on-one meeting. But if it's greater than one-on-one, I'm going to struggle. I already told you an example where my family, the three of them will gang up on me, and I'll lose every single time. Not that I don't mind losing sometimes, but sometimes I like to win, and sometimes I'd rather eat at this restaurant rather than that restaurant, or go skiing in Whistler than some other place that my son wanted to go to or whatever. So one-on-one is definitely more manageable. Any questions on this content? Okay. I'm going to next talk a little bit about success secrets and some helpful hints on the influencing side. It's really important that I understand the other person's point of view to the point where I can defend it, where I really understand exactly what their point is, so that I understand it so well that it may be the best plan. It may be something that I completely change my plan to go with their plan. But the more I understand them, and maybe I agree or don't agree with it, I can certainly formulate a better plan knowing what their ideas are. I also like to mention other people's ideas. Like, again, back in the meeting or even in my family, I'll say, hey, I talked to my daughter, I talked to Lauren, and she said X, Y, and Z. And Lauren said, yeah, Dad and I talked about this. One, people like to hear their names called in a meeting. People like to be stroked. So it's a compliment to them, knowing that that letting people know that I talked to somebody and I'm mentioning their name in the meeting. So again, it's a way to build advocacy by getting people on your side. The most influential trait towards influencing others, this is kind of motherhood and apple pie and that kind of stuff. But the real bottom line here, you can read all the text, is that you need to be likable, you need to be trustworthy, you need to be competent, and you need to know how to play in the sandbox. Trustworthy, I hope that makes sense, right? Likable, look, if you're trying to influence people and they like you, you'll be much more successful. But if they hate you or don't like you, it's going to be hard. Just think about someone that maybe you don't like, you know, would you be influenced by them at all? Competency, they need to at least understand, you know, can you lead this team or can you influence us? I mean, why should we listen to you? It's like putting a coach in charge of a sports team, and that coach has not played that sport, right? I mean, how influential is that coach going to be to the players if the players know, well, this coach didn't play the sport. Why should I listen to him or her, right? You know, the old saying, so back on the playing in the sandbox, the old saying on everything you learn in life, you learn in kindergarten. This is true, no question about it. So how you get along with people, your relationship with people plays a huge, huge role in like how to influence other people and how to get what you want. So all I can tell you guys is like play well in the sandbox. If you're in a group situation, like you're doing group projects, get along with all the team members in your group. You know, I know you guys do multiple group sessions and projects. Learn to get along with people, right? That's a really important thing. So what happens? Well, actually, let's say now I've had the pre-meeting and now I'm in the meeting. You know, what do? I certainly mentioned that I had meetings with Joe, Sue, Sally, whoever I met with. I talk about it because one, I want people in the room. You know, I probably didn't get a chance to talk to everybody, but I certainly want people to know that I did my homework and I spent time collaborating and talking to people about this decision we're going to make. I also include, you know, I mention people and I say, this is what Joe Blow wanted to do or Sue wanted to do. You know, I bring their names up again, stroking them. And if there's a conflict between me and someone, I certainly bring it up and I mention it and I say, hey, Jack and I couldn't resolve this issue. And he thought this and I thought this, but let me tell you why I think this path is a better way to go. So I'm just open and honest. You know, that's as blunt as I get in a meeting, is just letting them know which ones I think are my advocates and which ones I think are maybe more of my opponents in a kind and gentle way if I can. So group chat says, I'm good with communicating. However, perception is everything, and I have some issues understanding others' point of view sometimes. Any suggestions on how to better understand others as I try to make my point? Well, I think the key thing is get with that person one-on-one and try and understand their point so that in active listening, you will paraphrase and you'll say back to them what you heard. So if you're talking to somebody and you say, hey, I'm not sure I completely understood you, but let me paraphrase what you said and see if I got it. And then you repeat back what you think you heard, and they'll say, yep, Mike, you got it, or no, Mike, you're not even close, right? So I think it's important for them to understand that you understand, and the only way you do that is to repeat back to them what you heard. So try and capture what they've said in your own words. Does that make sense? So as to let them explain, yeah, you can certainly, so as to let them explain for themselves, yeah, certainly they're going to explain it, but I think it's important that you also explain it as well, because that means you understand. And once you understand what they're trying to say, then you can provide your points, or you can defend their points better. But it's really important that they understand that you understood what they said. Okay. So far, I'm liking the chat stuff. It's pretty cool. So it's working well. Okay. There's an upside and downside to the pre-meeting. One is, I think the biggest upside is that you usually get the job done. Like back to my family vacation scenario, we would have spent an hour or 2 hours trying to figure out where we're going to go on vacation, and I could just have some quick pre-meetings with my family members and just make it happen. Usually I'll get what I want, which is always a good thing, right? Not trying to be selfish, but trying to be selfish at the same time. You create strong followers. People see that you can lead others, and they'll probably put you in charge of doing more things. The downside is that it takes time. It takes time to develop a relationship with people. It takes time to have the pre-meeting or the meeting before the meeting. I'm not going to kid you about that. That's the worst part of this whole deal, is that it just takes time. But in the long run, I think it's worth it. I think come up with a better answer. And if you get something that you want, and also pull in other people's needs as well, you end up with a great win-win solution. Okay, I have like 3 or 4 more slides left on the summary. Is that I think it's important to recognize that you can influence anybody. There's a benefit to you and the team and everybody involved in the decision process on influencing. The meeting before the meeting, I think, is highly critical. You know, like it may not happen in every single case, but if there's important decisions coming up, like if you and your parents are trying to decide on something, you know, I'd recommend having a discussion with your mother separate from your father and then bring them back together again, because you get on the same page much quicker. And then you won't get a chance for them to gang up on you. Be competent and likable. Mention people's names during the meeting. And the relationships, playing in that sandbox, super, super important, right? I'm just going to tell you, being liked from, you know, college on through work career is going to take you a long way, okay? So being disliked, you're going to have challenges in life. So I'm just letting you know of like people that have worked in my group. I know who gets along well with people and who don't, and then I know the success patterns of those who are well-liked and also competent. I've always wanted to give college students a homework assignment. So this is your homework assignment. And there's nothing, Brittany's not going to test you on this at all. So you guys can do it or not, but practice this on non-critical areas first. Think about your family, your friends, your peers. Try it in a situation that's not going to be, not a life or death situation, not a job, make or break career thing, but just try it. When you take on a leadership role, you know, I know there's plenty of volunteer opportunities. Take on a role where you're a leader and influence people that don't report to you. I mean, it's super powerful to try and, you know, direct the team and say, hey, let's go do X, Y, and Z, and then practice those skills on the people that don't report to you, because they'll take you super far in life. Try to manage up. Like I mentioned, the parent example, if you're trying to make a big decision with your parents, try and separate them, have the pre-meetings with your mother and father, or just one parent or whatever, and then get them back together again. A teacher is probably more one-on-one, but again, try and understand where the teacher's coming from and see if you can manage up. And same thing with the manager.
Mike, that kind of leads to a question we had. You can see it there. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
So quick question. Students are often encouraged to network and build relationships. How did you do this in college, and what would you recommend students to build professional relationships? So I did not do that in college. I didn't go. I think the biggest thing I didn't do was I didn't do any kind of internships. I didn't try and find out what the real working world was like before I got out of college. When I graduated the BS degree in chemistry, all I was book smart. Okay, that's it. I had no practical knowledge other than whatever lab work I did. And so I think a couple things you could really do. One is find somebody in the field you're working and ask them to be your mentor. People love to mentor. I mentor 4 or 5 students right now at A&M, Texas Tech, SMU, UT Dallas. I like doing it. And if you can find someone that's in your field that you can certainly talk to them about, you know, advice they can give you, like, you know, what path, why they choose the path they did, why are they in the field they are. So I think you should try and find people in your field. Maybe your college could help you with former students that have graduated from your field and are working in industry or working in academia or wherever, but try and reach out to somebody in that area. I'd also recommend trying to get an internship between your sophomore, junior year and your junior and senior year. whether it's paid or unpaid. My daughter took an unpaid internship working for a hospital, and it really helped her getting nursing school. But she had to sacrifice in doing that, but it gave her a feeling for what nursing was going to be like. So I think it's important to try and reach out to people about internships and about mentorships. So I didn't do that. I learned the hard way, which was go get a job, work for 3 years, and find out that, hey, I like the job, but I'm not going to make much money. So I need to go back to school. So did that answer your question? And that's from, I'm going to butcher your name there, so I'm not even going to pronounce it.
That's from Anna.
Oh, Anna. Okay, yeah, so it's two words. Okay, Anna. Anna, okay, got it. Okay. So that's one thing I'm also working with Amanda Sullivan on, and Brittany, is like, how can we set up more mentoring with alum, right? On the beginning of the slide, there's my email address, and I put it up there for a reason, is that if you want to reach out to me and start a relationship along those lines about careers or things like that, even though I'm a chemist, I've been in the industry for a long time. I've been mentoring employees and students for a long time. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain, right? So try and find people that will help you, and I guarantee you, a lot of people do want to help. Okay, suggested reading. I do think this is a good book, Influence Without Authority. I think this is really powerful, right? You can certainly influence with authority, right? That's easy. You're the coach, and you're going to tell the players to do X, Y, and Z. Got it. But if you can influence without authority, just think how powerful that is, that these people, they don't report to you, but here you are influencing them to go down a certain path, X, Y, and Z. So I think it's a good read. It kind of complements a little bit what I've been doing. There's lots of psychology in this kind of stuff, and I don't get into that at all. And there's lots of textbooks. What you heard today was kind of my slant on how to influence. And so, anyway, that's it. We have, 5 more minutes, Brittany, is that right?
Yes, correct. 5 more minutes.
So any other questions or comments? And I see that Anna wrote, definitely take Mike up on this. Yeah, reach out to me. And when you do send me an email, at least introduce yourself. Say, hey, Mike, I was in this lecture you taught, blah, blah, blah. So at least know who you are. And I don't think it's spam mail or something like that. So just set the dialogue. But I'm pretty
one of the
receptive.
students asked if they could connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. Yep, I'm on LinkedIn. Go for it. Again, if you do it, and I see you're from University of Florida, I'll accept. If it's somebody that I have no clue who the person is and where they're from, I may not accept. So so anyway, if I see you're from Florida and that we'll just have this conversation, then I'll go ahead and accept. It's not a problem. So LinkedIn works. And then Stephanie said, thank you. Okay, got it. You're welcome, Stephanie.
Hey, Mike, I have a quick question. So for the students who are taking my strategic self-marketing class, I spent a whole week talking to them about the process of managing up versus moving on. And in many of their cases, they were working at either a retail position or whatnot, where they had to make a choice whether to manage up or move on. Can you kind of provide an example of a situation in which you had to decide whether to manage up or move on, and what happened?
So like in this case, is like move on to saying, hey, even though the manager wanted to do X and I don't want to do X, I think the Y path is better. I'm just going to choose X because that's what the manager wants to do.
Or even moving on, meaning move on to a different job.
Okay. Okay, got it. Because you don't get along with the person at all.
Right.
Yeah. So I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. So it's like if the manager says X and I think we should do Y, I'm having a one-on-one with them, right? So one, I am not going to confront manager X or manager in a public setting at all. It's got to be a one-on-one session. And again, I'm going to certainly say, hey, I need to understand and why you're doing this. And then I want you to understand my thoughts and my feelings about this and why we should do X, Y, and Z. I think it's important to at least make that first approach to have that meeting with the manager to see if you can, if they'll listen to you. And if they do and they make some changes or listen to you and move on from their point of view, that's great. If they don't, then you know for sure they're not a great person to work for. So I'd at least give it a try. Again, if you're going to move on and leave anyway, why not take that stab and try it to see if it works. And maybe at the end you'll have a better relationship, and the manager will look up to you more for more suggestions from you. So I think you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by making that a one-on-one approach.
Thank you. I'm glad that you talked on that, because I'm glad they're hearing from somebody else on that topic other than just me.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had people that I could not stand working for, right? I mean, again, it's like, how likable are you? So we had to have lots of one-on-ones. Hey, look, here's the deal. We're not getting along. Here's why. You had to make those tough discussions, but they're important discussions, because in the end, it'll make your life much better.
Absolutely. All right, students, do you have any other questions? This is the time to ask. You can either type it in, because I know that sometimes it takes a while to type in. You can either type it in, or you can just unmute and say your comment. I see Rebecca has a managerial role. And that says I'm good.
Okay, Annette's good. That's good.
Thank you.
All right, well, look, seriously, take me up on my offer if you want to reach out to me and just talk about career stuff or whatever. That's something I've been pushing Amanda and Brittany on. Networking is important. Making connections outside of the school environment is important, right? So just take advantage of me if you can.
Absolutely. All right, well, students, let's just say ginormous thank you. We really appreciate, Mike, you coming to talk. And I wish you could have come to campus, but we're glad you still took the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today.
Okay, not a problem. You guys take care. And stay healthy. All right, bye-bye.
Bye, students.